Just hit him. Forget about letting his style show. Shifts his punch. I just push him and knock him at this point. Okay, my central stepping in. Right? Boom! I come into the line. Alright? That's the same line that I would have used in Tanso. Tanso, or he kicks. Boom! I kick his post. Again, he tries to kick. Boom! Right in. The left throws the round kick. Boom! And I plant it. Right? Planting it, then I'm able to strike him as well. Where his leg is, I planted it, and I can sweep him and throw him. When you push or pull the opponent, and you throw them off balance, you're able to control them. Thank you for coming to Wing Chun Kuen Masterclass. In this series, I plan to show you the basis of advanced level Wing Chun. Advanced level Wing Chun is formless, and in doing so, you learn not hand techniques, but learning how to deal with energy. You learn not steps and stances, but learn how to deal with balance. You also learn body structure rather than having shape or form. So with this, I'll share with you Wing Chun Kuen Masterclass. In this series, I'll be assisted with my partner, Rafi Kevorkian, one of my longtime disciples. In basic Wing Chun, we talk about the center line, and there's 5 center line concepts that are essential for the advanced practitioner to understand. First of all, yes, there is the imaginary center line of the person. It's the imaginary midline, and that's the first principle. Second thing is, it's an anatomical line, because in this anatomical line, we want to protect as many of these targets as possible. The third major concept of this center line principle is that left and right are balanced. In other words, when I strike my opponent, I have to have left and right hands balanced, not one hand extended more than the other. If I can't hit him with the other hand, that means I don't have the center line properly. The next concept after that is the center line is the center of gravity. Because it is the center of gravity, I come in, I need to attack the center of gravity at all times, right? If I'm not attacking the center of gravity on my opponent, right, in any strike, any push, or any setup move, I'm not doing proper Wing Chun. So the center of gravity is the other principle of the center line. The center line requires that you have 3 points in alignment. In particular, the first point is between the eyebrows. We call it the yin tang point. Second point is between the nipples and the center of the chest. This is called Tanzhong point. And the third one is the Dantian point. It's about 2 finger breadths below the navel. And so when those 3 points are in alignment, then a person has proper body structure. And that's the idea behind the center line. The last concept of the center line is what my Sifu Hawkins Chung talked about frequently. He said the center of line is the fastest line of entry between you and your opponent. The idea behind that is if Rafi is taking a fighting stance, okay, and I'm going to come in, right, and it's the fastest line of entry between us. Okay, I have to be able to strike him into the center line, right? It doesn't mean I'm aiming at his center line necessarily. It just means at a point of contact, if he's here and he's giving me pressure, okay, then this is the quickest line of entry into the opponent. Okay? So that's the idea behind it. All right, with that, that's the 5 center lines. The next thing I'd like to introduce is the structure test. I wrote up and introduced these structure tests long ago, and so for camera I wanted to show you specifically what they are. As I mentioned, the 3 points have to be in alignment. Again, the Yin Tang point, Tanzhong point, and Qi Hai point. Those 3 points have to be in alignment, and if they're out of alignment, it'll show immediately. So the first thing I'd like to do is show how I can apply pressure onto the person. Now, Wing Chun has this forward stance. People think, well, I fight from a horse stance. The horse stance should be sideways, and if I push him, he's very stable sideways. And you know, that's a given. But Wing Chun doesn't fight like that. Wing Chun fights with both hands even, straight and square, kind of like wearing a protective bulletproof vest. So in doing so, what he has to do is have this 3 points in alignment. And when I press him, his knees are bent. They take the pressure and all my body weight goes to the legs, okay, while he maintains his structure. As I put more and more pressure on him, okay, he's able to take my full weight. Even if I push even further, okay, he's able to take my full weight onto him, okay, and receive that. The reason why is because he's linked up his body. He's got a proper body structure or bone alignment. In this, having this proper body structure and bone alignment, then he's able to pass this energy down into the ground and feel rooted from it, right? Similarly, if I push off center, okay, he still maintains his position, okay, and he'll feel weight on his opposite leg. And if I press the opposite side also has more weight, okay? Similarly, if I press different parts of his body, okay, hips and otherwise, he's going to have the strength, right, from holding that structure, okay? So I'm pressing him in different areas. So that's the first structure, is if you have the basic stance. This should be taught to you from day one in Wing Chun. If you don't have this, then you haven't properly learned your Wing Chun, because you haven't learned structural alignment. It shouldn't be, oh, you'll learn this 30 years from now. You should learn this immediately from day one. Now, the second structure test that I typically teach is from the second form, Chun I. So I'll allow Rafi to get into the Chun I stance, forward Chun I stance. This one. Okay. And in doing so here, okay, you put the hand back. All right. I push him here, and similarly, you see the line of force going into the heel here. Okay. So I'm pressing him, putting my weight on him. He's taking the weight, and it's transferring down. Again, proper bone alignment, vector force alignment. Okay. He's able to stand in that way. Most people will say, oh, this would be strong at this angle, but it won't be strong this way. What Rafi does is just adjust his hips. So even if I pushed at that diagonal angle, okay, he adjusts his hips pointing towards me, he feels more rooted, okay? So some people train a similar stance to us, Sanchen stance. They say, oh, Sanchen stance is strong in almost every direction, but they're weak in one direction. No, it's not true. All you have to do is adjust your hips. As I said, there's no fixed step. There's no fixed stance, because stance are actually steps, and steps are actually a manifestation of balance. So since we only have two legs, we have to learn how to triangulate our forces to make us more sturdy, okay? The third structure test that I typically do is he's in the same stance, okay? And I pull him. When I pull him, his front leg feels the major bearing of the weight, because he has the front leg getting the major weight. That means his structure is balanced. Now, Wing Chun people often argue politics. They say, oh, the stance should be 60-40, 70-30. It doesn't matter. Really what matters is you have the proper balance. When I pull you, you feel the root, the power going into the ground, then that's okay. All right? And the fourth major structure test that I do is he's in the sideways Chun I stance. Okay, so sideways Chun I stance. Okay, I press here. Why? Here I'm on his bridge, on his forearm. Since I'm on his forearm, he has to have the proper alignment. Most people will shift at this point, but I'm showing you that shifting is not necessary. You have the strength regardless. I can put more weight on him, and he will just feel stronger and stronger, more rooted into the ground. Again, vector alignment, right, and summation of forces lead to the redirection. It all depends upon the relaxation and the tightening of certain muscles. All right, what goes with the body structure is that it's not enough that the body is in alignment, but if you think about it, that's about 70% of all the Wing Chun power. The other 30% is supplied by the bridge and the arms or the legs in kicking. So in having the proper body structure, most Wing Chun people are very relaxed and they just keep things straight. But what I do is I try to imagine that Wing Chun is kind of like a screw. It's kind of screwing into the opponent. So it's screwing into the opponent. There's a structural, imaginary screwing of the forearm, okay? This screwing of the forearm puts the elbow into the proper position, okay? And the proper position is not along the center line, but actually in the mid-clavicular line. The mid-clavicular line is the line of where your clavicle is in the midsection of the clavicle. Now, we could use the nipple as a reference point. However, nipples come in various positions. You have innies and outies, ups and downs, right? So the nipple is not a very good position to use. So you use the clavicle line and the mid-clavicular line as an area for your elbow. Now the elbow has to be a fist to a fist and a half distance from the body, okay? But this spiraling turn is what makes the bridge strong. If he doesn't have the spiraling turn, okay, if he just relaxes and keeps the hand position, it's easily collapsible. But if he has this spiraling turn in his hand position, he's very strong. Similarly, with futsal is simply the hand on top, okay? If he has his hand relaxed, it's very flexible and loose. But if he turns his forearm in, number one, his elbow position is very strong. Number two, it makes and adds to his body structure force. So he has more strength in that way, all right? So it has to have that spiraling turn also with the forearm, okay? So rather than just being relaxed, you turn completely, and then that's a better position. It makes you very strong from there. The last position in Wing Chun is Bong Sao. So Bong Sao, he's in position. Now most people turn the hand, and you cannot do Bong Sao without turning. It has to have a spiral and a turn. But he has to have this imagination and intention to spiral and turn this more. So in spiraling and turning it more, he has more strength and power in this way. So that's the important point of spiraling for the forearm, okay? It's kind of like a screwdriver effect or a drilling effect. The next thing I'd like to discuss is the 8 directional stepping. And Wing Chun, we have steps which take us from our basic position to different angles. Of course, other systems have it too. We position our footwork like an asterisk so that we can step out in different angles. So if I take the forward stance, combat stance, okay, and I want to advance, I simply advance. If I want to adjust step, I take an adjust step. Now Wing Chun doesn't call it retreat step because ideally Wing Chun we don't retreat, right? We call it an adjust step. I'm simply adjusting, so we never retreat, all right? If I want to move to the left, I move and position to the left. If I want to move to the right, I also position to the right. If I want to go to the forward angle, I step at the angle. If I want to step out at the other angle, I step out. And then I retreat to the left, I retreat to the right position. So those are 8 directional stepping. In this particular segment, I'm going to discuss 8 directional stepping and pivoting, which is a basic idea of Wing Chun. So I'm in the basic stance, and when I step, I need to pivot. So this way, I'm flanking the opponent or taking his backside. And similarly, if I take a step backwards, I can pivot out of the way very quickly. All right? These steps are not in basic level Wing Chun. These steps are in advanced level Wing Chun, particularly if you study the Wing Chun knives. All right? If I want to take a step to the side, I'm going to step to the side and pivot. If I take a step to the opposite side, I take a side step and pivot. If I need to take the step to the angle, I step first and then pivot and turn. Okay? This way, again, my idea is to flank and take the opponents from behind. All right? In this segment, I'd like to discuss stealing steps. And Wing Chun uses a concept we call tobo. Instead of just stepping one step, actually we steal a step a little bit and then take an advancing step forward. Similarly, if I need to step behind, I'll take a step behind and then step behind. Okay, small step behind. That's called stealing a step. So it makes me seem closer very quickly or seem further very quickly. I'm actually taking 1.5 or 1.25 steps at all times. So that's the idea behind it. So I take a step forward and then step through, or I take a small step backward and then pivot and step backward. Right? So this way I can cover and change my distance very quickly. In this segment, I'd like to discuss the pushing the handles, which is a basic concept of Wing Chun. Of course, in Wing Chun we call it Pak Da, but in life you go through doors, and many of the times you go through doors, you either push the door or pull the door. In this case, it's pushing the door, right? So if my opponent has his hands up, if he has his hands up, I have to go through the door, right? Because his hands are the gate. So I need to push the door handle in order to get entry into the position, right? That's the idea. Now, in pushing the handle, right, when he throws his punch, that's a handle to me, right? If I have the eye contact and the visual acuity, along with the spatial distance and understanding, yes, I can intercept it and stop it. If not, what I have to do is I have to wait for a position. If he comes in, if I see a position, I need to take it. Once I take it, I immediately enter in. All right? Now, this hand position does not have to be just one side. Pushing the door can be many ways. You know, you have different doors. You have horizontal beams where you push them, or you have revolving doors where you push them. So if the opponent shifts his punch, I can just push him and knock him that way. Because why? Again, he presents a door handle to me for me to push into. All right? Now, as I mentioned to you, you need to take the center of gravity. If you're not taking the center of gravity, you're not controlling your opponent. If you're not controlling your opponent, he can easily slip in a punch and strike you. But when you're striking your opponent, the idea is you attack his center of gravity. He has two opponents against him now. He has his loss of balance, which is gravity, is his opponent, his first opponent, and his second opponent is me, because I'm going to hit him. All right? So another way of doing the handle is I take initiative. He's in a position. I just simply take the initiative and strike him. Right? Or I take this handle and I push him. Right? Or I take his shoulder, cover myself, and then push him. Okay? It's a door handle. No matter what I do, I'm using him as my door handle. I'm pushing onto the door in order to gain entry. Okay? I can also strike the opponent in here, and I have a door handle position. Okay? Other types of pushing in the handle, he throws a punch to me, I strike it this way. Okay? He pushes, I struck it at the wrist. Then he punches, I strike it at the forearm. Right? He punches, I strike it at the elbow. He punches, and then I strike it at the upper arm, the tricep level. Right? Finally, I can strike it at the shoulder as well. Right? It doesn't matter where I strike it along the arm, as long as I capture his center of gravity. If I take his back, I strike his back. And make sure I position myself so that his center of gravity is lost, and I have the time to strike him again. All right? So he strikes me with his right, okay, I strike him immediately. All right? Another one is he strikes, okay, and then I elbow. He strikes, and then I kick, okay? He strikes, and then I kick to the groin, and then strike. Okay? From there, those are different examples of pushing the handle and what self-defense applications you can use from them. All right, this next section is, of course, pulling the handles. Pulling the handles is the opposite of pushing the handles. So again, you have a door, and some doors you have to pull them open. And it's the same thing. So if my opponent strikes me, I simply pull the handle, or I make sure I cover. He strikes again, right? And I pull him, or street punch, Rafi, right? I'm in, and I pull him and control him. Notice his center of gravity gets thrown off balance, all right? That sets him up for easy shots, because look, he's at this position, there's space. If there's space, I need to attack the space, okay, by simply stepping in. All right, he comes in again, street punch, and I simply use this to control him and pull him, right? I need to pull him off balance and strike him simultaneously. That'll give me a greater impetus to strike him. If I pull him and strike him at the same time, that's even a better situation, because I add on to his force. He's falling into my blow, my strike. All right? Another way for me is that I take the initiative. He's on an unguarded position. Okay? I grab him and pull him and strike him. Okay? With this, you can alternate pushing and pulling as well. Often people say they can't use Wing Chun's trapping because it's too many techniques. It's Pak Sao to Lap Sao, Gum Sao to Pak Sao, Fuk Sao to Lap Sao. They get confused because maybe the Chinese terminology makes them confused, or if it's not the Chinese terminology that makes them confused, they don't have the central idea. So I like to introduce to you my concept of teaching this. It's called X marks the spot. It's very easy. When I read pirate stories to my kids, often there's a map and there's a treasure. And on the map, the treasure is buried where the X is. So that's the idea behind X marks the spot. So what happens is if I'm having a person to be trapped, I can do a vertical trap, I can do a horizontal trap, or I can do a diagonal trap. Those are essentially the three traps. And from there, all of the Wing Chun trapping maneuvers can be done. Okay? So a vertical trap is my opponent's hands are on this vertical plane. I either push them down and I've trapped him, or as he's going up, I've trapped him. Okay? Doesn't matter what he's doing, or if his hands are up and crossed, as long as it's on this vertical axis, I'm able to trap him. All right? So that's called a vertical X. The second type of trapping is the horizontal trap. In the horizontal trap, the opponent strikes a punch, okay? And you say, well, where's the X? Well, it's the X is between me and him, okay? So you can see where he's trapped. Plus, if he tries to strike me with his other hand, strike over or under, he's created an X. So that's a horizontal X, okay? So what I do is I simply put him into position and I've trapped him as such. If he tries to still strike me again, I again get him into position and strike him because he's trapped up from there. All right? So a diagonal X, people don't understand, right? Say, what do you mean? He strikes me with his right hand, right? If he strikes me with his left hand, okay, here I simply get the position and cross him. When I cross him in this way, it's a diagonal X, right? So I'll show you another example of it. If I'm sticking to him and he throws a punch, right? Then I simply cross his hands, okay? And then I got him in another type of X. All right? So those are the three X's. X marks the spot. That's the essence of trapping. All right, so in trapping, you have to have a safety margin. And most Wing Chun people, what they do is they trap the hands. So let's say they got the person in the trap. And then what they do is they strike. Well, here you have one hand fighting against two hands. The problem with one hand against two hands is that if you're fighting a similarly weighted opponent, or if the opponent is bigger than you, and he has momentum, he's going to break your trap. You don't have it. Okay? So when you drive on the freeway, it's good for you to have insurance. Not because you'll necessarily hit someone, but what if someone hits you? So, in this concept, again, have the opponent in the trap, I use driving with insurance. So that means when I hit him, I make sure my arm is in contact with him so I can strike him. When I strike him, if he tries to push forward, I have the combined weight of both of my hands in order to stop him. Okay? So that's the idea. Always when you strike in Wing Chun, you strike with insurance, right? You keep the elbow in and you control his hand. Right? You don't just go for a big shot. As dramatic as it looks, right, it's not very strong. What you do is you keep it in close quarters, all right, and then you're striking the opponent with that. Right? That's X marks the spot. And driving with insurance. All right. In Wing Chun, you want to produce the greatest effect of issuing force at the closest distance. So you need to have an analogy, right? The analogy that I like to teach my students is specifically, burst the balloon, okay? Imagine you have a water balloon or you have an air balloon on top of an opponent. And when you strike, you don't just simply strike at the surface of the opponent. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get a rapid decompression, okay? A rapid compression and striking in this way. So what I'm doing is, when I strike, I drive my fist into him. Boom! I press him, strike him, and strike him, right? The idea behind those strikes is to burst like an air balloon or water balloon, right? So that I can create the largest amount of hydrostatic shock to the opponent's system, right? If I strike him like this, he's not going to want to continue his attacks to me because his strikes, he's going to feel, wow, those strikes are very powerful. So the idea is use the strike not as just hitting the target, and not just hitting through the target, but really bursting. You want to burst and destroy the internal organs. You want to break the rib cage. You want to rupture the liver. You want to rupture the spleen. Okay? You want to injure the pericardial sac of the heart. All right? You want to do something so that you're imagining yourself to burst a balloon. All right? And that's the idea. It's a concept, but it'll give you a better idea of how to use the short power at Wing Chun. In this concept, I'd like to introduce the concept of lock and load. And what I mean by lock and load is really, it's loading and then getting the opponent's weight onto your legs so that you can issue it to them, okay? So I have Rafi in a fighting stance, his hands are up, and when I give him pressure, okay, he's taking the pressure into his legs. You'll see his leg, he'll be relaxed first, and then when I give him pressure, he'll take the weight onto his legs. When he takes his weight onto the legs, he maintains a similar pressure up here that I can't force him down anymore, or I can't push him anymore. That is kind of like a spring. You're loading a spring and having the spring compress. So in having that, then that's called what I call lock and loaded. So then he's ready to issue and shoot. In shooting analogy, we talk about lock and load. If we are talking about regular handgun shooting, all right, we come down with the gun and then we're locked and loaded. We're ready to shoot. Right? It's the same idea behind the stance. Is that when I have an opponent's structure, I put weight on the opponent. He immediately drops his stance and takes my weight onto his knees. All right. This next section, I'm going to explain the second part of lock and load. So when my opponent gives me the weight, I am going to take the weight on my stance. So you see pronounced, I'm exaggerating, okay? Ordinarily you wouldn't see it. So I take the weight on the stance. The second I feel his weight going off of me, okay, then what I can do is uproot him, okay? So I call that flying air chew, all right? So in flying air chew, you lock and load first, and then what you do is you launch him the second you feel his weight coming off of you. So you assist him, all right, in that. In that way, then people will fly. So what happens is if we're in a Chi-Sao situation, a sticking hand situation, okay, I'm taking his body weight and I take it into my stance. Take it into my stance. The second he moves backwards slightly, okay, I'm sending him flying, okay? So courtesy of air chew. So again, all right, fighting in a Chi-Sao situation, okay, I've trapped him, okay, I'm locked in, okay? The opponent doesn't like that. The second he lets go, I send him flying. In this segment, I'd like to discuss breaking the structure. In Wing Chun, breaking the structure is the most important thing. In breaking the structure, you've already passed and crossed over the bridge, and what has to happen is the opponent's structure needs to be broken. What I mean by breaking his structure is that his center of gravity is lost and the opponent is flying, or he's ran into a strike, a punch or a kick, or you've subdued him in some way, all right, in a joint lock. And so if he comes and strikes me, okay, he has good structure. I have to wait until a good position, or I have to use a good position in order to break his structure, his center of gravity. So what I need to do is I need to obstruct him somehow. So here I can strike his head, and then you see his structure is broken. All right. Similarly, if he strikes again, all right, I'm in position. Right. I use this to lead him, and his structure is broken again, okay? So his center of gravity is again lost. The idea is continually make the opponent structure broken in at least 8 different directions, right? If you're an expert, 8 directions is not a big deal. But if you're a beginner, 1 or 2 or 3 directions, it's very hard for you to do. So the idea is specifically, you can do a drill with your partner, okay? He's coming and he gives you pressure, okay? So what you have to do is you have to break his structure in different ways, okay? So here, I'm breaking his structure to the side. Here, he's coming in. The second I feel him loose, then I break his structure forward. Okay. Another way is he's striking alternately. If he shifts, I broke his structure this way. So you can see his structure is already lost. If he strikes me with his left hand, I simply break his structure to the opposite side, and so on and so forth with the angles. All right. So the idea behind Wing Chun, you must break the opponent's structure. If you don't break his structure, there's no Wing Chun. All right, this next segment I'm speaking about indexing. Indexing is what you do to your computer to make it run faster. Indexing is another way of using a filing system so that you can access information very quickly. Maybe you'll put things in alphabetical order, like patient files or patient records or whatever. And this way you can access them very quickly. Now, of course, martial arts should have indexing too. You might say, martial arts has indexing? How? Indexing is you have to know the right spatial distance for each of your tools. Maybe I strike with the fingers, right? Maybe at this range I need to still strike with the fingers. Here I can strike with the palm. Here I can strike with the wrist. I can strike with the fist. I can strike with the forearm, okay? I can strike with the elbow. I can strike with the shoulder. I can strike with the hip, okay? I can strike with the knee, okay? And I can strike with the shin. If I know where the opponent is, I can always push or pull them into my indexed range. At this range, I'm always able to pull out a tool to strike my opponent at will. Okay? This is one of the differences between beginner level Wing Chun and advanced level Wing Chun. You'll see techniques that you say, oh, they don't exist in the Wing Chun system. That's because, as I said, true advanced Wing Chun is formless. You have no form. So because of that, if my opponent strikes, okay, he strikes, I'm in a bad position here. So I'm indexed. What would I hit him with? I'm too close to hit him with the fist, right? But because I'm indexed properly, I understand. I choose to hit him with my chest. Simply because that's a good index reference, okay? I know each distance where I can strike my opponent. Similarly, if I attack my opponent, I'm in position, okay? He's got me in a bad situation, right? Okay, I index, and I'm able to strike the force and issue force from there. All right? The idea behind indexing, you have the right distance and the right tool. You'll always be able to pull it off. If my opponent strikes me, all right, I'm in position, okay? I can position him for whatever blow I want to, and I don't have to measure it or think about it. The idea is that blow will always land, okay? The idea behind indexing is, Wing Chun says, fist does not miss, kick does not miss. So I want to index the distance of my opponent properly so that I don't ever miss any strike. Next we'll discuss the hammer and the nail. Now in Wing Chun, the nail is the limb. All right, it would be the fist or whatever tool you use with the limb, the upper limb or the lower limb, okay? The hammer is the body. So when you strike the opponent, you don't just throw nails. You throw a nail, right? But it has to be hammered. In other words, it has to be pressed from the body. If you're not getting much body structure and body alignment and body movement, right? You're not able to nail them properly, right? So the idea behind Wing Chun is you always have to have the two components, the nail and the hammer. If the nail lands, okay, then it has to get hammered where the opponent feels the next strike. All right? That's the hammer and the nail. Every Wing Chun person needs to know the hammer and the nail. Wing Chun has a concept of Wing Chun to the fourth power. And what I mean by that is switching and alternating, transitioning. I just introduced the hammer and the nail, but also there has to be an understanding that sometimes you can just nail people, and then sometimes you can just hammer people. Then sometimes you can transition from nail to hammer, or from hammer to nail, or from hammer to hammer, or from nail to nail. So in that way you have 4 different ways. So I call that Wing Chun to the fourth power. And just to illustrate, I'll give you some examples. If I use simply my hands and I strike my opponent, okay, so I use nail to nail, okay, that's without me using body structure, okay, that's a common scenario. Even Even other systems use this all the time. What this is basically, I must strike the opponent. I'm using fast combinations with the hands. Those are throwing out nails. All right. The second transition that we have is the hand leads first, but then next is the body. So now I'm able to strike the opponent with the body. Or he strikes me, and I use the nail to stop him, right? And then I use the next as a body shot to make him fly. All right? So that's nail to hammer transition, or hand to body transition. All right? I can also pummel my opponent with my body. If I pummel him with my body, what I do is I'm using hammer to hammer transition, or body to body transition. In this way, my whole body and nail is linked together. So he strikes me, and I use the bridge. Here I have body structure to stop him. Then I strike him again with body structure. I don't use speed. I use body structure so that I'm able to hold my position and use my body to absorb his power. All right? That is a nail is a hammer to hammer transition. All right? The last one is hammer to nail transition. All right? In this way, I'm using my body structure. I meet him first with my body structure. I got my position. All right? And I can strike him, but then I just simply use a quick, fast shot with my hand. All right? That's body to hand transition. So if you're able to alternate all four of these, then you're an expert in Wing Chun. All right? So let's use it as using the analogy. It's nail to nail, nail to hammer, hammer to nail, hammer to hammer. Or if you want to use it in another way of explaining it, it's hand to hand transition, hand to body transition, body to hand transition, and body to body transition. Understanding all four of them will give you a rich variety of techniques and applications. Many times people ask me, how do you use Wing Chun in a real fight? Of course, that depends on who you're fighting. The idea is, people say, oh, how would you fight against a boxer? How would you fight against a wrestler? How would you fight against a karate man? How would you fight against the praying mantis style? How would you fight against this or that style? It doesn't matter. The idea is, when you're using Wing Chun, don't let the opponent's style show. All right? The second you see a system show or a person taking a stance, you don't immediately say, wow, that's amazing. You know, maybe you see a person take up the praying mantis stance. If they're doing a praying mantis stance, you don't say, wow, that's praying mantis. You say, you just hit them. Don't even let their style show. The idea is, don't make them have a position. If they take a position, if Rafi is taking a position, on guard position, boom, just hit him. Forget about letting his style show. If you're seeing his system, that means he's kicking your butt. The idea is, don't want to see his system. If he's standing in a position and he stands, boom. The second he's in position, you hit him. You hit him back first. Okay? The idea is take the initiative, right? Don't let their style show. If their style shows, that means he's showing you his system and what he does. If he's doing that, you're losing. All right? Don't let the system show. When we learn Wing Chun, we're often introduced to the basic hands. There's Fuk Sao, there's Tan Sao, there's Bang Sao, there's Jat Sao, there's Biu Sao, so on and so forth. These hands get to be very confusing. The idea behind Wing Chun is very simple. Strike the strike, punch the punch, kick the kick. Don't use the defensive hands. Those defensive hands are showing you bridging. And the idea behind bridging is that it's supposed to show you, okay, I could hit you there, or this is the way I would enter to hit you, right? That's a training practice, kind of like pummeling, going in and out, upper hand wrap or lower hand wrap when you're doing pummeling. However, in Wing Chun, the idea is you got this position. If he throws a strike, I shouldn't just do Fuk Sao, right? Because then you're blocking. Yeah, block first and then strike. That's slow. That's inefficient. The idea behind doing the Fuk Sao is that I'm showing the parry, but I'm showing the line of entry into the opponent, right? So you should do that in one motion. That means punch the punch. He throws the punch, boom, you come in and strike him. I've taken the same line of entry into the opponent. He comes again, boom, I strike and slide in. okay, then I punch the punch. Similarly, if I use Tanso, I have the hand in position. Tanso is pointing right at him. I have the inside position, and I have my Tanso position proper. However, this doesn't do anything for me. I haven't hit him yet. The only thing at most is that I've stopped his blow. The idea behind it is I need to strike him with that blow. Okay? So often people strike, boom, I come into the line. All right? That's the same line that I would have used in Tanso. Tanso, I just extend my punch. Again, slow. Okay? And I extend my punch and then I strike. Okay? So most people say, doesn't look like Wing Chun. Where's the Fuk Sao? Where's the Lap Sao? Where's the Tan Sao? They shouldn't be asking that, because what you're doing is you're fully extending the Tan Bang Fuk with your fist. It's all embodied in the fist. So you're striking the strike. You're punching the punch. He throws a punch, you punch him. You throw a punch, I punch him. He throws a punch, I punch him. Okay? Then I'm using the various tools I learned in Wing Chun. Punch against the punch. Okay? Similarly, it applies to the legs as well. If he kicks me, straight kick, I kick his kick. I don't want his kick. I don't want to block his kick. If he throws a round kick to me and I block it, it's very painful for me. I'm going to have a big bruise, and it's going to injure me, it's going to hurt me. What I want to do is, he kicks me, boom, I want to kick his kick. I'm going to kick the inside of his leg, or I want to kick his center of gravity, boom, into his groin, or he kicks, boom, I kick his post, his supporting leg. Because I don't want to receive his kick. If I'm blocking, if he throws a kick, and I'm blocking like this is very painful for me. All right, let's try that again. A round kick, boom. It's very painful for me. People say, well, you train a wooden dummy, your arms are going to be like steel. It's not true. It's going to be very painful no matter what, because his leg is 2 to 3 times heavier than my arms. I'm still going to receive an impact. If I'm going to receive an impact like that, I'll still get hurt. The idea is, again, it ties into with what? Don't let their system show. If you don't let their system show, you punch their punch, you kick their kick, you strike their strike. You don't allow them to hit you with their tools. Okay? Striking is preemptive. It's much safer for you to use striking rather than using a defensive hand. All right, knowing that we can strike our strikes, or strike our opponent's strikes, or punch his punches and kick his kicks, then we can do it opposite. In other words, we can punch his kicks and we can kick his punches. So if he attacks me, Rafi attacks me with his left, right, I immediately kick him with my right. The reason why is, again, indexing. I've indexed the right distance. And the other thing is, if he tries to strike, he's going to show me his style. I don't want to see his style. Okay? I just don't like the opponent's style. It offends my eyes. Okay? I want to take him down. Where he kicks, or he kicks me, okay? I can kick his kick. That's one way. Okay? But if it's another way, if he tries to kick me, I enter in and I punch him because I sense his intention. All right? Again, he tries to kick, boom, right in. So that's me punching his kick. And the other one is he throws a punch to me, boom, I use kick to strike against his punch. All right? So you can always kick punches and punch kicks. In Wing Chun, it's very important to have the proper entries into the legs. And what we do is we do 5 basic entries per leg. And then we can apply this principle in many different ways. So if my opponent takes a forward stance and I have his leg here, I have different ways to enter into it. There's at least 5 lines of entry into a leg. All right? And you would think that there's an imaginary center line down the foot, and I take the side of it first, is one entry. A second way of entering is I take the entry straight towards the center, but it's still on the outside. And in doing so, I'm trapping his leg. The idea, even when you're on the outside, you're trapping your opponent's leg so that you're setting him up for what? Sweeps, trips, throws, obstructions, delaying his timing, right? Another way is I step right on his foot, right? Into the center line, right? Then I trapped his foot. and trapping his foot, then that makes him susceptible to being a sitting duck for me, so that I can strike him at will. All right. Another way is I strike in and I'm attacking his knee. I'm going to attack his medial collateral ligament and then throw him off balance in this way. All right. And then finally, my fifth entry is in between his legs, but from the medial side, from the inside. So that once I position my leg, all I have to do is straighten this leg. Remember the concept of lock and load. I just simply extend and send him flying, courtesy of Air Chu. All right, so those are the 5 entries to the legs. All right, in Wing Chun, we don't like to do those static leg blocks. We prefer to shave people's legs. You might think, oh, razor and shaving cream, but no, what I mean is I need to dissipate and disperse his force over a greater area. In doing so, what I do is I lessen the pressure on me if I take a strike. So for example, if Rafi throws a left round kick to me and I block it, oh, I've absorbed the pain again on one spot. That's a lot of pressure over a small area, right? So it can damage my leg, can damage my bones and whatnot. I can snap my fibula and be terrible, all right? So what I do is I rather shave his legs. So I shave and I disperse the force, either upward or downward, in order to get into proper position. This way I don't take that much force on my leg. Again, I'll show again. So again, the round kick, boom, I shave the leg. I move my entire leg against his leg so that I disperse the force over a greater area. All right, this way I reduce the pressure on my leg. That's called shaving the legs. In Wing Chun, it's necessary that you control the opponent's limbs. You're the one who takes charge. Again, you don't allow the opponent's style to show. All right? What I just did before was shaving the legs. But in shaving the legs, that's only the aerial component of it. The other component is you need to plant the foot. What I mean by planting the foot is you need to immobilize and trap the opponent's foot or put it in a bad position so that you can take full control of your opponent from there. For example, again, Rafi does the round kick. If he does the round kick, I need to put his leg down. I put control where his leg is. Notice he's off balance. All I have to do is tip him a little bit. He's totally off balance, all right? His position is off, right? Again, he throws the round kick, boom, and I plant it, right? Planting it, then I'm able to strike him at will. Because why? He's in a bad position. I've overextended his stance, or I put him in a bad position where his stance is not good, or I set him up for a sweep or a throw or body drop or any other type of disruption to his balance. The idea behind Wing Chun is you must combine breaking the balance. When you break the balance, then you're able to launch your attack without worry. Right? So plant the leg properly. He throws another type of kick, and I plant his leg. Okay? If he throws the kick with this leg, okay, I plant his leg. When I plant his leg, I'm able to see where his leg is. I planted it, and I can sweep him and throw him. All right? That's the idea behind it. So make sure you know how to plant the opponent's leg so that you control where he is and what he's doing. The main purpose behind Wing Chun is to break the opponent's balance, and then you can strike him at will. And this way you can stand and pound, or even ground and pound, or whatever you want to do to the opponent, right? You need to control him so that, first of all, you're attacking his structure, you break his structure, you break his center of gravity. From there, you're able to strike him at will, okay? In any position, he leads and strikes, you have a position, you're able to pull him or push him off balance. You never allow him to feel comfortable with himself, all right? Now, I know in karate you have the hikite, pulling backhand, or you have oso te, where you're pushing him, right? It's the same thing in Wing Chun. Wing Chun always needs to be push or pull the opponent. When you push or pull the opponent and you throw them off balance, you're able to control them at will, right? You break the structure. Once the structure is broken, you can strike at will any way you want to. That's the essence of Wing Chun.